Good evening, everyone. I think we might get started. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to everyone in the public gallery. My name is Karen Redman. I'm the Mayor of the town of Gawler. This is the last ordinary council meeting for this year. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge this land that we meet on tonight is the traditional lands for the Kaurna people, and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Greater Adelaide region, and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the living Kaurna people today. So we have a full roll call. We have no apologies. Are there any motions to grant leave of absence, councillors? Be none. Thank you. There's no leave of absence, no non-attendance. Now, moving on to public open forum. I have three people who wish to speak. I have Lynn Lillicrap on the Changing Places access key. I have Peter Smith from the Gawler Community Retirement Homes on Cycleway. I have Shane Bailey on 10.9, the app matter. So, sorry. Okay, you'd like to speak as well. Are you able to just Damien, you're allowed to just fill out that form? Yep, no problem. Are you wishing to speak on the tennis court matter? Okay, thank you. Anybody else? No? Okay. So first of all, I welcome Lynn Lillicrap, if you'd like to come forward. Thank you. Oh, Lynn's got a mic. Excellent.
Yes, I have a mic. Thank you. Oh, no, I'm fine here. Mayor Edmund, councillors, councillor staff, good evening. I wish to speak to Mr. Shank, or Councillor Shank's motion, Changing Places access key, and to support him in his motion to provide MLACs to approved individuals, families and organisations in the Gawler Council area. At the last census, the Australian Bureau of Statistic figures identified 22.5% of our population as having a certified disability, approximately 10% who are severely disabled. I'd like you to consider the following scenario. Imagine you are the carer of a severely disabled person, one who needs significant daily care in most aspects of living, perhaps even in a largish, heavy wheelchair. Besides providing all the daily needs, you would also like to take this person out more often into the open spaces, the fresh air, into a perspective different from the four walls of home. You take this person to the newly opened Changing Places facility in Julian Terrace. You park the vehicle in, hopefully, a vacant disabled parking bay near the facility, unload the largish heavy wheelchair or your ambulant client who may need much assistance, go to the facility only to read the sign which states an MLAC is required. And for those of you who don't understand what an MLAC is, it is a master locksmith's access key, used in many, many areas these days in Australia. The sign says this is available from Drake's, the post office, the civic centre or the council administration offices. But here's the catch, only during business hours, and on public holidays, not at all, as none of these places is open then. What happens outside all these places' opening hours? You can't leave your client alone, so you need to reload, drive to one of these places hoping there's a suitable park, unload your client as she cannot be left alone, obtain the key, then reverse this process. Proceed to the amenity, again unload, use the facility, then reverse the entire process to return the key to the office. This is such an avoidable inconvenience for carers. To have to go through such a process each time should be totally unnecessary. You councillors do not have to do so to use amenities. Why should carers have to do so? How do I know? This is precisely the process as a solo traveller I had to go through with my wheelchair when interstate a few years ago, before MLACs were ever heard of in South Australia, as I discovered when I attempted to get one when I came home. Councillor Shanks has calculated that based on the number of MLACs required for those requiring use of the facility, the initiative to provide Gawler individuals, families and organisations with their own keys for use whenever needed would cost $5,000, and it may well be less depending on the number requiring the use of that facility. That facility is not for everyone, so there wouldn't be very many in Gawler who would need an MLAC to access it. This amount is approximately a quarter of your annual allowances, Council. Interesting. You are able to enjoy the use of Gawler's amenities when out and about, enjoying our time at any time you choose, without having to fetch and return keys. Why deny the severely disabled this enjoyment? Council's Disability Access and Inclusion Plan states, the Disability Access and Inclusion Plan aims to ensure that the town of Gawler is a healthy, active, safe and engaged community and is a place that is accessible and inclusive for all. It will assist community members living with a disability to feel welcome and included, to have access to adequate services and supports, and to participate in everyday activities. Councillors, I strongly urge you to consider supporting Councillor Shanks' motion, not only in providing MLACs to approved individuals, families and organisations, but in agreement with Council's Disability Access and Inclusion Plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. I'll ask for questions at the end of our presentations. Next is Mr. Peter Smith, if you'd like to come forward, Peter. Thank you. Just turn it on, Peter, if you can. The button in the middle, just turn it on. That's it.
Thank you. Can I ask, as a protocol, that I have to leave my mask on because I'm going to struggle to talk with it on? Am I allowed to take it off just to talk?
If you wish.
Yep, thank you. I am doubly vaccinated, just for your interest. I'm here to speak on the recommendation regarding the Gawler Cycleway, which is to be discussed later tonight. This is of great concern to my organisation. Unfortunately, we have come late to the party, which I'm going to explain. I today spoke to Humphrey George, our long-time board member, former secretary of Gawler and Aged District Cottage Homes, before it became Gawler Community Retirement Homes, just to get a background on the village that is being affected by this cycleway, which is Vinrice Village. When the organisation purchased the land, it was because of the position of it, which was going to give easy pedestrian access to the laneway down to the main street. But it also provided that the roadway had no through access, thus limiting vehicular use of the road to the 16 Vinrice residents, and there are 2 private residents that are on the street. I'd also note that that lane along for David Street, which passes in front of 5 of our units, also provides residents in Governor Daly Village with access to the laneway. Most of these being people that are pedestrians. Occasionally it might be someone on a gopher. So firstly, I'd like to let you know the history of our knowledge of this. We were contacted on Thursday by another resident from David Street with the intention to turn the street into a cycleway. It is the first we knew of this, despite it affecting 16 properties in Vinrice. And as I mentioned, also will have some effect on the units, 20 of them in Governor Daly Village. All of these units are ratepayers of the town of Gawler. However, this is arranged by us as part of their agreements. We therefore represent them. So my first concern is that we had no direct consultation on this matter. As a major stakeholder along the road, I would have thought we would have received direct consultation on a critical part of the route. Whether this was required under any regulations or not, this seems to me to be prudent management. So we have major concerns over the consultation process and the time that I've had to waste over the last few days trying to put something together to be here tonight. I did contact Henry, the CEO, by email on Friday as soon as I could, and I've expressed my main concerns and the concerns of Gawler Community Retirement Homes on this matter. So I'm going to summarise them. This is the access road to Vinrise Village where we have 16 units. Now, I'm not sure if everyone clearly understands what a retirement village is. The residents aren't locked up in their room securely, so they can't wander. They're independent people who come and go from their homes as they please. This means by car, by foot, by gopher, and maybe even occasionally, in fact, it does happen, they will be walking their walkers down the roadway. Part of the reason they bought into these units is because they are well located on a reasonably quiet, safe road. The only traffic is residents or visitors driving to the homes or foot traffic, neither of which cause any major issues currently. Quite clearly, cyclists riding through Gawler currently don't use this road. To suddenly allow cycling traffic to use this as a marked thoroughfare will add significant stress to our residents, as well as any of the pedestrians that already use the road. Cycle traffic will definitely become a welfare issue for our residents, who will have to be far more careful of the traffic, the type of traffic that will be easier for them to miss seeing. And I would add, it's quite likely they're going to be travelling faster than the cars that currently go down there, which are all going quite slowly when they're moving to their units. The road has basically no usable footpaths. So anyone walking on the road has to do so on the carriageway. Not a major issue currently with the amount of traffic, but if you add to this use, it will become a major safety concern.
You got 30 seconds, Peter, thank you.
Sorry?
30 seconds, 5 minutes. Sorry.
So this isn't important, Karen?
Yes, it is important.
Well, I've got a little bit more I need to say. And I haven't had an opportunity to consult properly, so I would like the opportunity to finish I haven't got that much more, but it will be more than 30 seconds. Okay?
Well, we've got other people that need to speak on.
While our residents are independent, they are older.
So Peter, if you can, have respect for the meeting. If you'd like to wrap up, that'd be fantastic.
Okay, well, there's not much more I can fit in. There's also an issue for my staff. My staff use that roadway as a workplace. They have to put bins out there on a Thursday. The bins go out on a Thursday along David Street. Don't think cyclists and bins and bins being picked up are going to mix. And we won't be dragging any bins up to Daly Street, I can tell you. I was very disappointed in the consultation that I had today with your staff. They had no interest in what I was saying, and it was all a case of this is what's going to happen. And I was very surprised at how Henry seemed to only want to shut down the meeting the whole time. I drove down Eder Street today, which I noted was in alternative 2, and I realised that that's already marked as a bikeway. And when you get to the end of it, it goes up Lindock Road. So I'm not sure why that isn't suitable to be used. But then I did read some of the disadvantage, and I'm not going to mention it because you guys will read it, but the last 2 paragraphs seem to be the key to that. And I'm going to just finally say that if this does go ahead, you'll leave us with no option but to seek protection legally for our residents whose security is being put at greater risk by the town of Gawler making this decision. As I say, you haven't allowed me to finish what I was going to say. I had more to say, but if that's the way it is, so be it. I will do the right thing by the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Next is Shane Bailey.
Evening all, thanks for the opportunity to speak. Unsurprisingly to most of you, I will be speaking to agenda item 10.9, the Gawler Connected Community App Review. That agenda item's officer's report states, the main difference between council staff recommendations and the consultant's recommendations is the removal of consideration of a solution that assists small business to transition online, etc., etc. Council should step away from this type of activity. In July 2018, Council knew better than the local businesses. Council engaged experts who'd never successfully delivered anything like they were proposing. Council ignored concerns from local businesses and took $250,000 from the federal government to deliver economic benefits to local businesses. Council took their idea to tender and only one company responded, the very company who advised Council to pursue a flawed concept in the first place. This is the first time alarm bells should have been ringing. It was in February of 2019. The Diabaldo report that you have already seen and had your workshop on is an excellent report, but there's one thing that the report's authors and I disagree on, and that is, when assessing and managing innovative projects of this nature, consideration should be given to risk appetite and tolerance in accordance with ISO 31000-2018 standard. I've spent more than 2 decades making my living in e-commerce. By changing the term to m-commerce doesn't change anything about what it means to trade online. Consideration didn't need to be given to an ISO standard to stop this project in its tracks more than 3 years ago. Never, anywhere, ever has it been a smart idea to focus on an app-based shopping experience as broad as this was to be over a browser-based one. The town of Gawler went one step further. It actively excluded a browser-based experience. It would be folly enough for the town of Gawler to pair both an app and browser-based approach at the one time, but to exclude the latter is simply unfathomable. Now, that may not make much sense to some of you, so the short version is, it wasn't a breakthrough, it wasn't technologically advanced or innovative or anything like that. No one else has ever done it because they were smart enough to recognise it was never going to work. Everything since then has just continued to compound, flaw after flaw, bad idea after bad idea, excuse after excuse after excuse. And more than 2 years after I started asking questions, it took a councillor who understood the concerns I had to get this administration to do something about it. A councillor had to move to instruct the executive to find out if they'd been wasting money. And here we are. Someone else, someone you had to pay, told you the same things I and others had been saying. And now you want to shut it down, which is fair enough. But after ignoring business concerns, after discouraging any other ideas because you had the app, after 3 years, after hundreds of thousands of dollars, after delivering $0 in economic benefit to the businesses of Gawler in a time of unprecedented growth in e-commerce, council is walking away from the businesses. The consultant's recommendation reads, the consultant you paid, consideration is given to an alternative arrangement which substantially delivers the objectives of assisting small business to transition online. However, the town of Gawler, after delivering absolutely nothing to local businesses that they told the federal government they would deliver, are removing that part of the consultant's recommendation, just that part. Council should step away from this type of activity, they recommend. I contend that council should never have been involved in this activity in the first place. However, council chose to insert itself into this activity, and it owes the businesses of Gawler, the ratepayers and the taxpayers who funded their failures, more than just shutting up shop and saying it's your problem. No apologies, no discussion. It's my understanding that the administration hasn't even discussed this report or their thoughts moving forward with the peak business body, the Gawler Business Development Group. There is budgeted $2,000 a month in perpetuity, effectively, for the app licence fee in the budget that you passed last year. If the officer's report as it stands gets up tonight, where's that $2,000 a month going to go? It won't go into helping businesses as per the consultant's recommendation, because the officer's report expressly states council is done helping businesses in this space.
You've got 30 seconds, thank you, Shane.
It will go into general revenue to get wasted on who knows what. You wonder why people don't engage council. You wonder why people are apathetic towards local government. You wonder why you cop it on social media. 3 years I've been at this. I contemplated coming up here and using my 5 minutes and just putting my head in my hands and sighing for 5 minutes, because that's what it feels like. You got it so wrong, you spent so much money and so much opportunity, and you could have stopped it 3 years ago. Thank you. Merry Christmas.
So now Damien Maloney, if you'd like to come forward, please. Thank you. Oh, yes. You'd like to declare a conflict, councillor Goldstone. Before you start, Damien, we'll just deal with this conflict.
I just want to declare a conflict in all the issues associated with the tennis courts due to being a member on the council assessment panel. So that's this presentation, item 4.1 and 7.1. So I'll leave the room.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else wish to declare a conflict in this matter?
As a deputy member, I'll do the same. I've been consistent as well, declare an interest and leave the room.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to declare a conflict in this matter? No? Okay. Okay, Damien, you've got the floor.
Again, thank you for the opportunity to speak. It's a shame that Councillor Goldstein's just left, because I'm going to thank him for at least he was the council on the panel that did try to do something to rectify the current situation I'm about to speak about. What I'm about to speak about is a major issue facing not just Gawler, but the broader community of all the South Australian residents in terms of the inadequate protection of individual and community rights under this new current state planning and development legislation, as well as the serious lack of consideration when it comes to both cultural and heritage protection. The Town of Gawler's council assessment panel, and I do repeat, council's assessment panel, conducted a secret meeting just over a week ago on the 9th of December, for which we were as the adjoining boundary owners, were not allowed to stay and attend. But the panel went on to receive and consider reams of correspondence and reports from the developer seeking to demolish the Churchill tennis courts and move other historical items. These matters were not listed on the agenda of the meeting, denying the community any awareness or access to what was going on. The council assessment panel, in secret, did a complete backflip on its earlier decision to oppose the application. I repeat, they originally opposed the application. There was no notice of rescission given to reasonably inform the community as to why. Your planning staff were involved in negotiating a secret demolition order, which we only became aware of because of a neighbour's last-minute interlocutory court application. In theory, the bulldozers could have arrived last week if it wasn't for that latter course application. I repeat, what we're looking at in those tennis courts could already be gone. It appears the council has two processes occurring at the same time and in direct disagreement in terms of desired outcomes. On the one hand, saying that it wants to protect our cultural heritage values, while on the other, its council assessment panel and planning staff negotiate without any transparency an agreement between the developer applicant and tear down and lay waste a central part of one of South Australia's jewel in the crown of cultural and heritage significance. Now, those words are not mine. Those words are the actual words of Dr. Iris Ivanicki, and I hope I pronounced that correctly, a member of Council's assessment panel, previous president of the Planning Institute of Australia, and a professional officer for the Heritage SA in the past. She made these and other statements when the Council's assessment panel refused the application on the grounds that it would not protect the state significance of this site. As far as I can glean, she was and is the best qualified panel member with specific expertise to advise and inform the panel of the significant cultural and heritage values of the land in question, and did so on the night the application was refused. Yet only 1 month later, and no change as far as any reasonable person could deem, the same panel, minus Dr. Ivanicki, has done a complete 180-degree turnaround and approved the demolition application. The obvious question is why? But of course, we, the adjoining residents and other users of the open space, are not entitled to any explanation. Now, to say it's not your fault or it's out of your hands is not acceptable. The council cannot wash its hands of the current situation we have before us. The council appoints the members of the council assessment panel. The council employs the planning staff, and the council claims to be active in preserving the Churchill State Heritage Area. The council wears the loss of public confidence arising from these the council assessment panel and staff actions, and this application will be considered the thin edge of the wedge in terms of other applications to demolish our community cultural heritage.
You've got 30 seconds.
Thank you. To finish on a positive note, I've come up with some positive suggestions and implore you to take some action. Number one, that the Mayor CEO urgently obtain legal advice on the validity of the CAP actions. Consider that advice and be authorised to initiate injunctive action if necessary. That the Mayor CEO immediately contact the CAP chair and advise of the council's concerns in the strongest possible terms. The council advised the Minister for Planning and local member, Tony Piccolo MP, of its strong concerns that the current heritage guidelines for the Churchill State Heritage Area appear impotent and are being ignored under the new planning regime. That the council immediately disband, if possible, under the relevant legislation and call for new applicants for the CAP membership. The council contact all other member councils of the local government association and seek an immediate meeting with the relevant planning minister and opposition to seek a review of the current legislation with the purpose to rectify the inadequacy of individual and community rights, as well as the bolstering of protection for places of cultural and heritage significance. Finally, you, the council, can do nothing at this stage and allow the current CAP, the developers, their lawyers and your staff to continue to act as if there is no protection in place for our state heritage area of Church Hill. And that is precisely what the latter are currently saying and doing. If you're in the court, in the EAD court last week, they actually put a case to say that we had no rights to be there.
So Damien, you need to wrap up.
Thank you, and I really do appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Damien. Any questions, councillors? Thank you, everyone. So now we're moving on to deputations, and we have Adrian Shackley in place of Adrian Evans in regard to the petition of St George's Tennis Courts. Thank you. That's better.
Working?
Yes,
Yep.
it's working.
Mr Evans is in Melbourne, so he's unable to be here. He apologises. In relation to the petition, this is the same petition that was spoken about at the last meeting. There are additional ones that came in, bringing the total number of petitioners to 250. We concentrated in collecting for the petition on people in the area around Church Hill, and I must say the response was overwhelmingly in favour. You know, I think one person said, I don't know, I think we should just move on. And the rest agreed to sign. There was one other person who said, this is a bit sort of political, I'll just keep out of it. With a person with a position that might have been in some jeopardy. So the community understands what's going on, and particularly thanks to the Bunyip reporting the issues over the last few weeks, lots of people are asking questions and looking for information about what's happening. And I might also say there's a Facebook site that does provide updates. We'd like to thank the council elected members and staff, and also local MP Tony Piccolo, for some actions taken to date in relation to the petition. There's clearly a problem though, as Mr Maloney outlined. And in relation to the wording of the petition, we're aiming to support the first decision of the panel, not the most recent one. I'm hoping that councillors and staff have read the Bunyip from last week, a wonderful letter from Mr Wayne Clark that you would have noted in there, which under the name of Courts Memories. And it was a a brilliant letter just expressing exactly the sort of sentiment and emotions about people's experience with open space that makes those places important to the community and part of the cultural heritage of the town, in particular in this sort of central area of Church Hill. I mean, just read the letter. It expresses in so many ways exactly the sort of arguments that the community have been putting, and that for some reason staff in Heritage SA and council's planning staff think are irrelevant. Extraordinary. So sport, school activities, playground, social events, that's what builds communities. And that's what's been building the Gawler community on this site for more than 120 years. Our memories are strong. We have hundreds of years of collective memories of this place. And the community has an enormous memory in relation to it. And just a couple of other comments. Pleased to see the motion that Councillor Davies has put up. That's a positive response to this issue that both council elected members and the community have been just serially pretty much wiped out from having serious input into the planning assessment process now. You know, there's been a lot of debate about this for the last few years, but we're in exactly the same position as we were 3 or 4 years ago when this really started to hit the airwaves. In fact, in some cases, we're worse off. So just to close, I mean, the community's looking for strong support from council. There's a big fight on. If you don't engage in this fight, we're going to lose. Council is going to lose, and all of the community is going to lose. That's all I want to say, but thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Question, Councillor Vallelonga.
Yeah, regarding that, Mr. Shanks, no, Mr. Shackley, sorry, Shanks. Who owns the land? I had the understanding that it was sold to a developer.
Is it working? There's a contract in relation to the land. The Anglican Synod in Adelaide owns the land. The applicant in the planning matter is the person who has a contract with the church. But it's a subject to contract. You know, if they don't get what they want, they'll walk away.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where do we legally stand?
I don't know if it's Sam's portfolio.
answer
I
that,
think
yeah.
I'll give it to the CEO to answer.
Through the chair, well, as Mr. Maloney mentioned, we have 2 concurrent processes running in this matter. The first is under the Development Act, the recently changed Development Act, in terms of the state government's framework in terms of how developments are processed and when applications are not subject to public consultation, and thus removing community from decision making. Now, if you agree or disagree, there's obviously a strong sentiment of disagreement. And to be honest, I personally agree with that disagreement. The transition of legislation over the years, and more recently, has been to remove community from the grassroots decision-making process, with the philosophy being, rightly or wrongly, and I put to you wrongly, that community should be involved in policy. That's enshrined in legislation. So coming back to the specific matter, how the matter was dealt with by CAP, the subsequent deliberations of the proceedings through the ERD court, the receipt of legal advice, the confidential report, and so forth, is all relative to very stringent legislative provisions. So where the council sits is that it is obligated to delegate its responsibilities to the CAP, and the CAP are an independent body in their own right relative to their function. And that matter, the development application matter, is before the ERD court. And we're in the hands of the ERD court in terms of how the refusal is being processed. So that's where we sit relative to the development assessment process. Separately, council's deliberated again, in a confidential matter relative to the issues that Mr. Shackley and Mr. Maloney have spoken to council tonight. And council's considering, and council administration with the mayor are implementing that confidential resolution.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Valalonga?
It's regarding that David Street, that
Yes,
I'm not sure what's going on there, so I couldn't understand what he really meant. Could someone tell me what, because it's not on the agenda tonight.
it is on the agenda. It
Is
was,
it?
yes, it's a
Whereabouts, Mayor?
it's a recommendation from the IES committee, where the full report is available in those
What
agenda.
number is that?
It's in the recommendations to committees. So if you look at page 45, there's a recommendation relating to that matter.
Oh,
Thank you. Okay, I think we might keep moving. Thank you everyone for speaking this evening. Now we'll move on to item 5, declarations of interest. We have, oh, thank you. Thank you. So we have a petition, we have declarations of interest. Is there any declarations of interest? Councillor Kosh.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll be declaring a perceived conflict for 19.2. I'll explain when I get to there. That's the tree compliance matter, 9 James Street, or the perceived conflict.
Anybody else? I'll be declaring a conflict on 16.4. Deal with it when we get to that item. Any other conflicts, Councillor Goldstone?
I just want to clarify if item 7.1's been resolved yet. 'Cause
Sorry,
otherwise I'll declare an interest in 7.1.
we haven't got there yet, but yes. Thank you.
I'll be there.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yes, 7.1, I'll leave the room for that as well.
Does anybody else wish to declare a conflict? No. Thank you. All right. That deals with the declarations of interest. Agenda items, there are nil. Petitions, we have a petition. Now, Councillor Goldstone and Councillor Hughes, do you wish to declare your conflicts individually and explain how you're going to deal with that?
Yes, I've got a perceived conflict as a member of the council assessment panel, and I'll be dealing with it by me.
Thank you. And Councillor Hughes?
Thank you. I'm a deputy member of the Development Assessment Panel and has perceived interest, so I'll be leaving the room as well.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a petition. You happy to move that way?
Yeah, happy to move the petition and just say that, look, I have got, as mentioned before, 16.1, a motion about our planning system. I think the community has been cut out from the process. I think the argument from the state government's end is sort of like, oh, well, we don't want local people getting involved in local politics or whatever, so we can handle it from headquarters in Adelaide. But I think that really does a disservice to heritage in local areas, and we need to do better on that. So yeah, happy to move this.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Little, do you wish to speak at all? Any discussion? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? All those against? It is carried. Thank you. So now, if we can ask the other elected members to come back in. Councillor Hughes and Councillor Goldstone, yes, you can come back in. Thank you. We now have confirmation of minutes. Ordinary council meeting on the 23rd of November. You want to move that way, Councillor Davies? You happy to do that? Do I have a seconder, Councillor? Sorry? No. No, that's 10.2. I don't have that in my notes. Right, that's not in my hard copy at all. No, that's actually not in my agenda, my hard copy agenda. Sorry. You happy to move that? Okay. Okay, you happy to move that? Yeah, okay, do I have a seconder? Councillor Davies, all those in favour? Carried unanimously, thank you. Is there a reason why it wasn't in the hard copy minutes, hard copy agenda? Yeah. Yeah, but wouldn't that, you would have thought that would have been in the agenda anyway. Okay. Business arising from minutes. Keep moving. So we're going to move to 10.1 on page 6, Gawler Business Development Group Annual Report. And we have the chair of the Gawler Business Development Group, Louise Drummond, and Karen Braun here to give a brief presentation. Are you giving a brief presentation or just here to answer questions? Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, CEO and councillors. We're here to present our annual plan, which you have all received and no doubt have read it. Just preliminary that the funds that we have are supplied by the business community in Gawler. Anyone in commercial premises pays for that, plus we have private members. So our funds are directed solely to supporting businesses, providing them with the assistance they need, helping bring new business to Gawler, present Gawler in a manner in which an individual business cannot, and representing the interests of business to the 3 levels of government. We have the report here. I have our executive officer here, and we're happy now to take any questions. Thank you.
Any questions? Councillor Shanks?
Thank you guys for coming tonight and yeah, presenting, and also for the correspondence that you sent through previously once again. I hope that have you seen the officer's recommendation, points 1 and 2? I was just wondering what point 2 does to the group. Are you comfortable with point 2, et cetera, et cetera?
Point 2 is something that we actually do already. If people who have been around the council for maybe 3 or 4 years would know that we've twice engaged Andrew Costello from South Aussie with Cozzy to do television commercials for us, which absolutely do exactly what number 2, recommendation 2 states, which is to try to put a focus on Gawler, spotlight on Gawler, everything that it has to offer through our Live, Work, Play, Do Business in Gawler promos. We also, as all of the staff know, we have engaged McGregor Tan, who are a market research company, to do some research which is currently underway. And once that is finished, we will get some data back to us, hopefully mid-January, which will help us formulate a marketing plan going forward. So, you know, I really see it as a recommendation that doesn't even need to be in there. We're already doing it.
Any other questions from any other elected member? Councillor Hughes?
Yeah, I think the point 2 is regards to the funds being carried over of $130,000 and looking at how that's going to be used in the future. I don't think council would expect that to be spent in the next 12 months or anything, but if it is part of that marketing plan or just a bit more details there.
A fair chunk of that money has been allocated to different projects, and due to coronavirus and other issues, obviously things have been carried forward. One of those was the McGregor Tan project, which is $30,000. 15 of that has already been issued to them. There's more to go to them probably at the end of January. $38,000 was paid out only last week to the Building Better Regions Fund end of that project. There was another $15,000 spent on different networking and business events since that report was done. So obviously in this first 6 months of the year, on top of the things that we do already. So there's a fair amount of that money already being spent and most of it already allocated. There will be actually quite a significant amount of that used before the end of this financial year.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, ladies. You may sit down. Thank you very much for that report. We have a recommendation here. I think I saw Councillor Shanks first.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move a variation where we drop number 2 out, given the advice from the Chair and the CE tonight. So I'd like to move an alternate motion that just keeps point 1.
Yep.
Can I speak to that?
Yep.
Yeah, look, members and members of the gallery, I think the Gawler Business Development Group, as Louise has pointed out, I get a funny feeling that they feel they have to point it out every single time they come in here, but they're actually using businesses' money. I don't see us in a position to start recommending to the Gawler Business Development Group on how they should be spending their funds, given some of the things that we'll talk about later in tonight. I'd be much more comfortable just moving 1, and I'd really, really like to see some more collaboration between the Gawler Business Development Group, council staff. I know there has been some attempts, but I'd like to see that start, really strengthening, because Gawler businesses are our bread and butter. They're the ones that are going to stimulate our economy when we need it the most. They're the ones that are going to employ our children, our family, our friends. They're the ones that are going to get 100,000 people driving through the town every single day. So we need to be able to get enough structure, enough support around these Gawler businesses. And number 2 to me, my personal opinion, is trying to tell them what to do. I'm not comfortable with that. They should be telling us what they should be doing. So the way it sits is point 1, I'm more comfortable with. So I hope I can get some support on this. And hopefully next year we can start focusing on building some of those relationships back up.
Councillor Koch.
I'd like to second this motion. I'd like to speak to it. I've been on the Gawler Business Development Board for a number of years. I've seen the wonderful work that they've done. There were a lot of things in train, in particular the McGregor Tan survey, which they're going to get some very important information about the needs and requirements of the businesses in town. And then from that information, they'll set in place plans and activities to support the businesses, what the businesses actually need. So there isn't actually surplus funds. There's funds there that will be available to implement the programs that the businesses will be telling them through that McGregor Tan survey. So I was quite concerned about that second part, and I'm glad that Nathan has moved this, because I was going to move it myself. So I would implore other councillors to support this motion. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Councillor Sandel.
Yes, I certainly agree and support this motion wholeheartedly, and by admitting number 2. I think one thing that's concerned me is the duplications of people calling them tourism bodies, promotion committees, and et cetera, as it goes down the line. And if these duplications could come together and work, as Councillor Shanker said, by way of all working together for one goal, then the money that is coming from the businesses for the Business Development Board could certainly be activated and promoted much better than I believe it has. the Business Development Board has worked very, very hard to promote the businesses and that in the town. When there's events on and everything, well, the Business Development Board should be involved with all those events in some way, because what they're doing is promoting the actual whole community, and as Councillor Shank said, for our children to get work and stay in the town here. So yes, I'd like to, as I said, I put my hand up to support the Business Development Board this year, because I think there's a few changes like that that can be made, and money is not duplicated to spend in other areas that doesn't include one group, and that is to promote this town to everybody in South Australia and from other states.
Thank you. Any other discussion? If not, Councillor Shanks, you happy for me to put that motion? I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Carried unanimously. Thank you. So moving on to 10.2, I think we'll move point 1 separately, and then we'll move on to point 2. Probably better to do it that way. You happy to move that way? Councillor Davies, that we resolve to appoint a Deputy Mayor for a period of 12 months. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Goldstone. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Now, I might hand over to the CEO who will conduct, I think, do we have nominations? You'll call for nominations, CEO. I can hand over to you, please.
Yes, through the chair, if I could ask for members to show their interests in terms of running the position of Deputy Mayor, and then we'll ascertain numbers, and then we'll ascertain the manner in which we'll vote. So if that could be shown.
Can you turn your mic on so we can hear you?
Sorry, Councillor Cody Davies and Councillor Hughes. Is that the two members? So that based on that, we'll proceed with handing out the ballot papers, and voting will be by way of the first past the post, but we'll first seek that the candidates present their bona fides.
So I might allow the members to have their I think there's 3 minutes that they have. So firstly, Councillor Davies and then Councillor Hughes.
Well, I've already talked before about why I feel that I'm qualified for Deputy Mayor, so I won't repeat myself there. Instead, I'd like to take this time to talk about my vision for what I want to accomplish while I'm here on council, since I think that's a good indication of what I would take further if I became Deputy Mayor. I believe that we need to stay distinct as a community over the upcoming decades, and if we want to do that, we need to strongly engage young people and young families in particular, so that Gawler becomes a home to them rather than just being a commuter town for travel to the city. That means taking that extra effort to bring them into the fold. As Councillor Sample likes to say, it's all about the communication. As a new member of the Gawler Council, a lot of what I've introduced or pushed for has been to work towards that goal. In fact, the very first tweak I made to a motion was at my very first council meeting, when we were deciding which subcommittees to keep. The original staff recommendation was that we move the Gawler Youth Advisory Committee from their previous monthly meetings down to quarterly ones, because not many official motions actually came through the committee at the time. After first making sure that the meetings were changed back to monthly, I've spent the last 3 years working with members of the YAC to help them navigate all of the bureaucratic council rules and jargon so that young people can have a real say in what happens in Gawler. So far, I think it's been a massive success. The YAC-led $50,000 budget bid to recruit a youth trainee for Gawler, for example, has been one of the biggest influences Gawler's youth has ever had on our budget process. There are also a range of other motions and questions that are regularly coming through our YAC from a large variety of its members. Just from this committee alone, we're helping to train many current and future leaders for our town. A lot of my other work on the council has also been towards that cause, whether it's been working to strengthen our community consultation, my advocacy for improving our social media platforms, updating our audio and video for meetings so that a wider range of people can keep up with us online, or my new participatory budgeting initiative, My goal has always been to widen Gawler's scope, to empower our less engaged residents to have the chance to get involved. To me, becoming Deputy Mayor would be another step towards that goal. If given the chance, I would love to be able to take that next step and show our local residents that there is space for fresh faces in our local community to get involved with our council, so that we can have a strong identity as a town for long generations to come. Thank you.
Councillor Hughes.
Yes, the role of the Deputy Mayor is a really important role to, especially if the Mayor takes leave. I'm very prepared to actually take time off work. I've actually been told I have to take extra leave by my work, so it will sort of free me up to actually carry out the role. I think it's very important that the Mayor and staff and councillors are well supported. I think it's important that we continue to push for the council and work to the best interests of council as a group. And I've in the past gone through the different regulations and procedures for looking after media, making sure as the spokesman for council that things are done correctly. It's really important role. And I also think with COVID issues coming up, that there will be a need to work very closely with the state government, whether we need extra COVID testing sites in our local community, which I was involved with last time we had an outbreak. Just working through issues with the council staff and local health was very important. I think at this time it is really important that we do have everyone working together and working strongly with councillors and staff, and making sure that we are seen as a really supportive council and supporting our community as well. I'm involved with a lot of community groups, and I enjoy being around Gawler, my family in Gawler, and being basically in Gawler. It is so important that we do have good representation, so I'm quite prepared to actually spend a lot of time and take leave as well to do the job. Thanks.
I'll ask members now to write a name on each, a name on the paper, one name on your sheet, and I'll come, if you can fold that up, I'll come and collect. And then Chris and I will go out to the hallway and count, and then I'll return.
ominous, CEO.
Yeah, so there's actually a tied vote. And just for the sake of clarity and transparency, so I'll turn members' attention to page 12, where it states that if at any stage during the process there is an equal number of votes, the returning officer will decide the issue by drawing of lots. The name of the candidates withdrawn will be the ones excluded. So
It's 10, Jim. 10. 10. Me. No, no. So we'll leave it up to the CEO to do his drawing of lots, and we'll go from there.
congratulations to Councillor Hughes.
Particularly close vote. Well done to both candidates. Okay. So Councillor Hughes, how do you wish to proceed?
I'll leave the room for the vote on this matter. Yeah, there's actual conflict. So.
Okay, thank you. We'll allow Councillor Hughes to leave the room. Well, okay, so looking for a mover. What are you moving, Councillor Hughes? Councillor Kosh, sorry. Okay. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Samble. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. All those against, it is carried. Thank you. Ask Deputy Mayor Hughes to come back into the room, please. Somebody bring them back. Thank you, everyone. That concludes that matter. Okay. We're moving on to 10.3. Councillor Shanks, do you wish to move that way?
Question through you, Mayor. I wouldn't mind actually deferring this to a workshop with the Gawler Business Development Group and potential and the current hub members in a public forum, because yeah, we're being asked for business advice here, but I don't think we're qualified to give it at this time.
So you'd like to move that we note the report and
Yes.
that a workshop between Gawler Business Development Group and the hub members
And us in a public workshop.
at a workshop
Yes.
that's open to the public.
Yes.
So Chris, have you notes that council notes a workshop be held in early 2022 between the Gawler Business Development Group, the Business Innovation Hub members, or other Business Innovation Hub members, because Gawler Business Development Group is a hub member, and other Business Innovation Hub members, elected members, and staff, and council staff, and council staff. You happy with that wording?
Yep. Well,
You wish to speak to it?
yes, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, look, councillors, the reason for this is I actually do see the merit of this report, firstly, and I do see the merit in discussing the options. But if we've been given options A, B, and C, imagine if there's D, E, and F that we haven't even thought about yet. I would much rather bring the people in the room that know business locally. That's why we have these assets. That's why we tap into these resources. That's why we support committees like the Gawler Business Development Group. I, for one, would love to start meeting our hub members. To date, it feels like we've been kept at a little bit of arm's length, if I'm being honest. Our ownership taking back over is hopefully breaking down some of those barriers. So let's capitalise on that. Let's open up the discussion and let's start talking to the people that are going to be affected by this and really tease out a good way forward. Because yeah, we want to make sure we get this one right. So I hope we can get some support on this and yeah, come back fresh in the new year and open the discussion.
Yeah, look, I'd like to second this motion. I'll speak to it. I think the hub overall providing space for new businesses to establish is fantastic. I think it looks like it's a success and it's working. The other really important part that I am happy with, and which is what I voted for originally, was the entrepreneurial side of the hub. So that's bringing in people with new ideas, mentoring them, developing those businesses. Unfortunately, that didn't happen with the model we had, probably because we didn't provide that stream of income, that income stream to generate that. It looks like to do that would cost about $120,000. Given our current situation, the need to reduce our debt, etc., for economic processes down the track, you know, we need to really look at how we can fund that. Probably it looks like 30,000 from the hub, so we need to find other funding somewhere along the line. That might be through state or federal government funding or other aligned organisations within our community. So I'd really like to pursue that and look at those options. So I think it's it's incredibly valuable that we actually get the entrepreneurs developed in our town, because that is part of our Smart Town initiative of part of being a digital economies. We need to get those smart new businesses starting in Gawler, because they're the ones that are going to create wealth in our town. And that's something that I think this council has been pursuing for a number of years. So I don't want to lose sight of starting up new business and the entrepreneurial incubators. So I would like to see all the different options on the table that we can pursue so we can move forward on this. So I would ask other councillors to support it. Thank you.
Discussion, Deputy Mayor Hughes.
Yeah, I support this motion. I think it's really important that, a bit like Councillor Koch was saying, that the successful hubs interstate, they have all the experts in the room with the businesses. So if the Gawler Business Development Group is actually in the room on a weekly basis or daily basis or whatever, I think that's really important. And that's where that sharing that knowledge goes to those new businesses. And in the report it mentions working with the Gawler and Barossa Regional Development Board, which I think is really important as well, because they do a lot of work with our businesses in the town. So I think that marrying up is really important. But having that cross section of different businesses in the hub, I think that's been part of that model too, making sure that there's not just all financial people or one sector only. It's got that cross sectors and keeping that sort of model up to date. So the hub actually has people with expertise in a whole range of new startup businesses. So they also get to sort of work together and sort of feed off each other and learn too, I think is really important. So yeah, very happy to support this motion.
Any other discussion? If not, Councillor Shanks, are you happy for me to put the motion? I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Carried unanimously, thank you. So moving on to 10.4 on page 20. How do you wish to proceed, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, happy to support this motion, and I think it's very important that we have the funds in there for the local heritage grants so they continue. I think that's good work, and I think there has been some actual work on different heritage elements to our town, which has been really good to see. So hopefully this continues.
Are you happy to second Councillor Goldstein?
Yeah, look, I'm happy to support this and second it. Also I'm happy with the idea of looking at increasing the maximum grant amount. When you look at the table, table 2, the comparative table, we are lower than all the other councils there. So yeah, I'm happy to support the recommendation.
Any other discussion, councillor Shanks?
Yeah, I too. I was a little bit surprised by the table, and it was actually really good of Shannon to include that in his report. So I thank staff for providing that. It's always good to compare with our neighbours and other councils in the area. I think you've probably heard me speak before about our essence, our heritage essence, and everything like that. I also do know firsthand what some of the handicaps are for some people that do own heritage buildings. A lot of the time it is financial, and then sometimes it's also knowledge as well. They actually want to do work, but unfortunately don't have the knowledge too. In the officer's report, it actually did pick up maybe communicating that better as well, which I really actually endorse too. I think by saying, look, we're willing to up our benefit if you do engage with us, is almost a good way to get that out from the community, and especially right now, coming on the tail end of how the restoration of walls is going and everything. It is being talked about, heritage essence. I mean, I know we've got a bit of conversation around churches and toilets, so I won't go there. So just to reiterate, I think it's a good time to align, especially with the building code changes and the protection of our local heritage. So I'm happy to support this, and yeah, look forward to seeing what comes of it.
Councillor Koch and Councillor Valalonga.
Okay, yeah, I'm very happy to support this. I think if looking at that, the table where it said how little we give is amazing. So it's good to actually lift that up a bit. And also the fact that we've just gone through a whole process of identifying contributing items throughout our town. So we've gone through, identify that. So we should now show good faith with the people that own those buildings to help them support those buildings and maintain them where we can. So I'm quite happy to support this. Thank you.
Councillor Valalonga.
I'm not sure that I should be in this meeting, Mayor, because I've got a couple of heritage buildings and it could happen, so I should leave out.
We've just about finished the discussion, Jim.
Yeah, I didn't realise that it was.
What do you wish to do?
I'll just leave out for the vote.
You want to leave the room?
Yeah.
Okay. If that can be noted, Chris. That Councillor Valalonga declared a conflict. Thanks, Chris. Any other discussion? If not, Deputy Mayor Hughes, are you happy for me to put the motion? I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Carried unanimously. If we can ask Councillor Valalonga to come back in. Thank you. Now we're up to 10.5. What was that? Might wait for Councillor Valalonga to come back. I don't know where he went. Is he back in? Is he coming back in? Here he comes. Nathan, did you have a question?
Yeah, I'm sorry if I've missed it in the report, but what would it do if we weren't, because I read this as the artwork acting as a bit of a balustrade. Did I?
Now, hang on. Are we moving on to 10.5? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, 10.5.
So your question is, sorry?
The artwork that's recommended to do on the bridge, is that acting as a balustrade?
Mr. Delina? I think that's what it sort of looks like, but it's not really a protection balustrade, is it? No.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. The artwork panels are offset from the rail corridor fencing or walling, so they're not actually part of the actual fence that separates the electrified
So
corridor.
it's a pure amenity addition.
Yep, yep.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got an officer's recommendation here. Members, how do you wish to proceed?
Yeah, look, I'm happy to move this motion. I've looked at the three options. I'm quite happy with option 8. I quite like Corten steel as public art. I think it's got good form and function considering the industrialness of that space. I think it'll be hard wearing and appropriate. It's very similar to the work that's on the link roads. Again, that sort of that hard wearing public art. And I do like the fact that over time it turns that sort of protective rusting colour. I think that's really nice. So I'm quite happy to support this. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder for this motion? Are you happy to second? Do you wish to speak at all, Councillor Shanks?
Yeah, look, I'm happy to second the motion. I actually agree. I do like the these sorts of artworks and the longevity of how long they do keep sort of recent, if that makes sense. What I do note is this isn't coming out of our council budget either. We are receiving funds for tree removals and amenity softening, et cetera, et cetera. It's almost like a bit of a compensation, I guess, from DIT. So that also needs to be noted as well. This is a part of us trying to make the best of a bad situation. And I think that's what is happening here. I thank Jordan for taking the time and Sam's team for teasing out these options, and I'm glad to hear that this is the recommended option, because it would have been the one I would have chose as well. So I'm happy to support this, and yeah, happy to see it all finished up.
Any other discussion? Councillor Fraser and Councillor
I have a
Sam.
question.
Yes.
The painted mural, it says as an example, so it's probably not that particular mural. Who gets to choose the mural?
I think that picture that you're looking at is part of the department's remit. Is that correct, Sam? Do you want to clarify that, Mr. Delina? We'll just clarify that for you.
So there's, in November, DIT approached us with respect to an opportunity that they wanted to now pursue in the rail corridor, given the delay to the delivery of the electrification project on a wall that's adjacent the current platform, or the future extension of the platform, and the widening that extends underneath the King Street Bridge. That is an artwork project that the state government will manage and run. We have asked that we'd like to understand what's being developed, and that we'd like it to have a connection to Gawler in some sense. And we haven't heard any further information in that regard, other than the fact they've got a 3-week window to deliver this in January.
Oh, okay. We're not quite sure what's going to be on there.
So it's not necessarily going to be.
Yes, correct. It's their asset that they'll develop and maintain within their rail corridor.
Councillor Sample?
Yeah, well, I still don't understand what you said, Sam, but, you know, do we have an opportunity? I mean, I heard Councillor Koch say about the magnificent artwork down the new 50-mile-an-hour speedway, and I'll tell you what, I never ever saw that was going to happen there. So I hope we as elected members that represent the people are going to have an opportunity to say yes or no about what artwork. I mean, that lizard there has never lived in Gawler. And, you know, like, so I'm just wondering, you know, I tend to forget that we're the people that represent this Gawler in the town. I would hope that we have an opportunity to choose some type of artwork that fits properly inside our community.
I guess we'll have to wait and see, because it is part of their remit, and staff, Sam, you're continuing to find out what their thinking is around that. Yeah, thank you. Any other discussion? If not, councillor Kosh, are you happy for me to put the motion? I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Now moving on to 10.6, monthly finance report. And we've got a favourable budget variance of 451,000, which is always good to see. Are you happy to move that way, Deputy Mayor? Do you wish to speak at all? No? Councillor Valalong, are you happy to second? Any discussion? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to 10.7, we have an officer's recommendation that we extend Mr. Peter Brass's term for 6 months, and then we go out and seek new independent members. Are you happy to move that way, Councillor Samble? Do I have a seconder? Councillor Fraser, any discussion? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried. All those against? All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Now we have 10.8, Northern Adelaide Waste Management Authority. Councillor Kosh? What? Right. CEO? Is your deputy chair, is that right?
It's always loath of me to provide some advice, but you might want to err on the side of caution.
And you're going to? Okay. Chris, if you can just note that, thank you. As a deputy chair of the Norma board, you might want to put that deputy chair, Norma board, and has left the room. And has left the room. Thank you, Chris. Now, are you happy to move that way, Councillor Valalonga? Do you wish to speak at all? Seconded by Councillor Fraser. Do you wish to speak at all? Any discussion? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. We can ask Councillor Kosh to come back in the room, please. Thanks, Councillor Kosh. Right. Now, Councillor Shanks, I think you have a motion you'd like to present.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I've sent some alternate wording, Chris. Did you?
It's down below. There it is.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Can you see that? Can everyone see that? If you'd like to present it, Nathan.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, this app, as you might have seen, has been one of those items that I'm eye rolling with it, to be fair. I've gone through some reports and I've gone through the information that we've been given as elected members. And what I can piece together, given the data that we've received, is the total app cost is around $368,150. We've been told that we got fed money for the smart cities, which was 250 grand. There was some reports that we got that said 250 grand went to the app. I've also been clawing through the data, and we have also been given a table that says, well, actually there's only 96,000 of that was allocated to the app. Now my breakdown is as follows. I'm more than happy to be corrected on this, but it is so convoluted now that I've lost track. $9,500 for venue hire management module, didn't happen. 215,000 app cost, as we know what the app is. 60,000 database cleanse, 40,000 licensing fee, which is $2K a month to date. 20,000 labour cost from the town of Gawler. Now that's being a little bit generous. The labour cost was allocated, was more closer to 70 grand. And now we can add the $8,650 to the overall cost on the review that we needed to embark on just to prove a point that I've been trying to make for nearly 12 months. And as we heard tonight, that Shane Bailey's been trying to point out far more. This is beyond frustrating. In the private world, this would not stand. This is a clear waste of ratepayer money, of taxpayer money. But look, we are here now. But then to move away from assisting business, given the fact that we're actually going to have surplus that we're going to be able to report now, because if we voted the original through, we would be able to turn around and say, well, we've just saved 2K a month. Good on us. With no benefit to the business community at all. Business community aren't happy with us around this item. This isn't doing us any favours. We need to go by the consultant's advice, which is exactly why point 3 has changed. And we also need to be given a report, because we need to be able to make sure that this business decision is the right way to go. We need to listen to the consultant that we paid $8,650 for. And that's why number 3 needs to change. And that's why number 5 needs to be added to it, where the report comes back to a future meeting, and then we keep on teasing this out. We do not want to throw this in the bin. That is not good enough. Completely agree to shut down the app. And if we were listened to 12 months, 2 years ago, we might have saved a fair bit of licensing money. But hey, it's just ratepayer money, right? So I would like some support on this to try to make the best of a bad situation and try to get some sense back into what we're trying to do on the fundamentals. We've sold a lemon. It's time to try to make some lemonade.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Vallelonga, do you wish to speak? Discussion? Councillor Kosh.
Yeah, look, I've got a question, and maybe Councillor Shanks could provide me with the answer. What are the alternative arrangements?
Well, I'm going to answer that, because on page 38, it does actually talk about, and the consultant recommends, if we look at page 38 of our report, page 38, halfway down, in fact, the whole page talks about alternative solutions, but in particular, the consultant recommends, and you look at point 2, which is exactly what is point 3 in the recommendation, or what the motion that's been moved by Councillor Shanks. And it also talks about consideration is given to alternative solutions that deliver the objective. So I guess from my perspective, it gives council staff an opportunity to consider alternative arrangements. Well, alternative solutions that deliver the objectives of improving community access, in assessing and managing innovative projects of this nature in future. Consideration is given to risk appetite, which is that separate point. So I guess it doesn't go into detail, but they give consideration to potential alternative arrangements. So whatever that might look like. So a report will come back addressing point 3. Yes, certainly, CEO.
If I can ask Councillor Shanks to clarify in terms of the reference in his alternative, which is transition online. I just want to make it clear that you're not envisaging that we start talking about another app.
Okay. I think we'll keep moving and ask for other discussion at this stage. Any other discussion on this matter? No. Councillor Shanks, you can close the vote. Thank you.
So just to clarify, there's an opportunity of connectivity here in the same way that we're wanting to engage the public to use our services. there's the same sort of opportunity to benefit businesses on our population that will be engaging us. We also have the potential to have them engaging with business through similar platforms. Now, I don't know the exact answers or the tech jargon around it, but it is leaving the door open to continue the conversations, to provide opportunities, to provide other options to come forward. By completely dismissing the recommendation from the consultant, what we're doing is trying to do everything else but shutting the door on business, in my opinion. This sentence allows those conversations, allows that initiative to still be visited. And what comes of that, well, who knows? But that's what we'll start seeing our report come back to. And I really hope that that's what's discussed in the monthly meetings with the Gawler Business Development Group. I really hope that it leaves the door open to be able to allow staff to start engaging with some of the businesses that may have a little bit more experience in this space, because we know what happened last time.
So the debate is closed. I'm going to put this motion. All those in favour of the motion, please raise your hands. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Now we have one information report, revocation of confidential orders. You happy to move that way, Councillor Goldstone, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hughes. Any discussion? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you. Now we're moving on to item 12, recommendations from committees, and I'm on page 42 of the agenda. So I'm going to move, we're starting with Gawler Youth Advisory Committee meeting, and motions made under delegated authority. You happen to move that way, Councillor Vallelonga? Yes. And you seconded, Councillor Davies. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Moving on to item 7.1. Recommendation of council. Thank you, Councillor Vallelonga. Moved, seconded. Deputy Mayor. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Appointment of members. You happy to move that way, Councillor Davies? Do you wish to speak?
Yeah.
And seconded by Councillor Vallelonga.
I think this is a good mix of 3 of the people on this committee are new. So we're going to have a bunch of fresh blood on the committee, and Isaac's been around a while and has been doing a lot of good work with you know, the $50,000 youth traineeship and other work like that. So it's great to see the committee continuing to find new young people.
Any other discussion? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving across the page, sponsorship of Student Leadership Awards. You can move that way, Councillor Davies, seconded by Councillor Vallelonga. Any discussion? Councillor, no. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you. Youth Development Plan. Councillor Vallelonga, I think, had his name up first, seconded by Councillor Davies. All those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you. Now we'll move on to the Gawler Heritage Collection Committee recommendations. We have the first one, the work plan update. You happy to move that way, Councillor Kosh? Do we have a seconder? Councillor Little. All those in favour? Oh, sorry, Councillor Sample.
I was just wondering, I asked about a collection plate to be put inside the door. I'm just wondering, is there any report about the point of ethics being collected or been dud coins thrown in there or something? Has there been any donations been gratefully received?
Update on the tap and go.
Through the chair, I'll take the actual figure on notice, but yes, there has been donations made and it is reported to the Heritage Committee on a quarterly basis in our budget update reports. The next one of those is for the February committee meeting, I believe, but I'll give council an exact figure.
Thank you. Any other discussion? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you. Donation of maps. Happy to move that way, Councillor Fraser. Seconded by Councillor Shanks. Any discussion? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, carried unanimously. Now we move on to recommendations from the Infrastructure and Environmental Services Committee held on the 14th of December. So we have some noting adopted motions, and that goes on page 45 and half of 46. Happy to move that way, Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Valalonga. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. So I'm moving over to 7 King Street. You happy to move that way, Councillor Fraser? Do I have a seconder for that, Deputy Mayor? Any discussion? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Household General Waste. Happy to move that way, Councillor Kosh, and seconded by Councillor Fraser. Any discussion? Not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Draft Climate Emergency Action Plan. Oh God, hang on. I think Councillor Valalonga had his hand up first, and Councillor Samble, you had your hand up second. So we've got a mover and a seconder. Any discussion? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to the Greater Adelaide Cycleway. Now, Sam, I think you had some slight variation to the wording. Oh, you've put it in. So we've got a point 4, a new point 4 and a new point 5 on the outcomes of council's consideration. Further engages with retirement homes, picking up, I think, on previous discussions. I think, do you want to add anything, Sam, at this stage?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. We certainly, at the IS committee, I brought to the attention of the committee that it's certainly been some strong positions put against the alignment of the cycleway up the private lane. And we spoke to the property owner, investigated other options, and really determined that this is really the preferential option. And since that time, we've heard from Peter Smith, who spoke tonight. Myself, the CEO, and team leader Asset Delivery met with Peter today on site. His position was very similar to what he demonstrated today. Certainly, I think there's some merit in reviewing some additional measures that we could incorporate with respect to some advisory signage or otherwise. We'll take a bit of feedback. We'll take some take that back to our consultants, expert consultants, in what we might be able to do. And I suppose picking up on that, we just want a little bit of flexibility to slightly amend the design to incorporate what might come out of that. So I did actually have after point 6, Chris, just as amended, based on the outcome of based on point 5.
Okay. So thank you, Mr. Delena. Do I have a mover for this? You happy to move that way? Councillor Shanks, do you wish to speak at all? And do I have a seconder, Deputy Mayor? You're next after that. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad that Sam's jumped on that, because that was actually one of the points that I wasn't actually going to support the way that it was, given the passion and working in aged care facilities. We do a lot of construction in aged care facilities. We know how they operate, especially independent living units. Got a development at the moment running. Access has been massive, absolutely massive, and we've been sort of tiptoeing and negotiating with the homes, with the residents, to turn around and sort of threaten their access and their safety. We need to tread very, very carefully with this, and the amendment does actually do that justice. It is a shame that the community consultation process didn't pick this up, but it's not really surprising. I mean, we have to sort of admit that. So I am glad that we are having another look, and we are trying to look at an updated design based on the concerns, and it'd be interesting to see when that all comes back. So I'm happy to support the way that it sits. And again, Sam, I appreciate you proactively putting that forward.
Deputy Mayor Hughes.
Yeah, I agree. My office for 18 months actually faced that laneway, and it was actually heavily used by pedestrians and cyclists already. So, and people, walkers and walking dogs and all sorts. So it is a pedestrian access that's used quite regularly during the day. So there's always seems to be someone on there most of the time. But yeah, I agree. If there's some extra ways to make it safer, if that's the way it goes ahead, I think that's a good outcome. Whereas, trying to use the car park area is quite dangerous, where that laneway, it would be quite, if cyclists did use it, I think they'd see it as a really low speed access area anyway, but I think some extra work to try and make it a bit safer is really important, and working with the residents. So I agree with the motion.
Councillor Samble.
Yes, thanks, Mayor Karen. And I'm really glad this has been put in there, because I have met with them, and this afternoon I met up there with residents, and it was quite interesting. As the Deputy Mayor just said, there was cars parked either side of the road, and you would not have got a fire truck between them because they're allowed to park there. And the whole road is congregated with the amount of people that live there, and they're all elderly people. And I think this is a big thing. We're just going to make that a clustered area. It's interesting from the people, Humphrey George especially, that's very passionate about elderly people in our community. But I throw it this to it, that if it did not include Kemp Road and David Road, the cycle path could continue down East Terrace and then cross the road and go down Blanche Street and still link up the same way, instead of allowing a bike path to come down Kemp Street and David Street. It can work, and I do hope that certainly that our staff and that look at that, the consultants or whoever they are and so forth, because to bring it further down that area only makes it more congestion and so forth. And East Terrace to Blanche Street with a good crossing, and certainly a Wombat crossing would be fantastic, across there into Blanche Street and down. It can be done, it should be done. So I hope that they look into that. I'm glad this is like this. I'll vote for this.
Any other discussion? If not, Councillor Shanks, are you happy for me to put the motion? Thank you. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Now, the next motion is waiving the application for landscaping on the verge. You happy to move that way, Councillor Fraser? Seconded by Deputy Mayor. Any discussion? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. External body reports. It's good to see that we've got them together. That's great. Minutes of external bodies. You happy to move that way, Councillor Little? Do I have a seconder, Councillor Kosh? Any discussion? If not, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Questions on notice? We don't have any questions without notice. Yes, Councillor Sample.
Thanks, Mayor Karen. I've been pretty concerned, and certainly I'm not into this Facebook stuff and all that sort of thing, but I've had a number of people have been saying to me about all the wonderful things that have been getting done around our community. I'll pick on one now, which blew it out the budget, and I don't see kids playing there, and it's just down to a road from me, is the Hemmerford Reserve new playground. Fantastic. There's no doubt about it. But did anybody hear about it? Did we read about it? The media's not even here tonight, so they're gone on early Christmas. But basically, we don't seem to be really promoting ourselves. The beautiful work that the contractors under council's guidance that did over on the other side of the Million Bridge, the garden way there, everybody is saying, that's fantastic, you know, but nothing was said about it. Nothing on Facebook. Now, I had to ask somebody to check Facebook because I don't know how to go into it. But I believe that we're doing a lot of things, and at the moment it's COVID confinement, and we've got a lot of staff that I believe should be making sure that everything we do yourself, going to all these different things and so forth, and what you're involved with, cutting the ribbons and opening businesses and everything. I don't believe that we're getting promoted as good as what we should. And if we want to get back into bed with our residents in the community, and, you know, let's face it, we've heard a fair bit tonight here with the open gallery and that sort of thing. It's not good news, and I'm hoping that this is going to improve so that in 2022, everything we do, and Councillor Kelvin will get his roundabout with some, plants in the middle of it on Ride Street and things like that. We've got to do things better if we're going to be back in bed with the community in the future. Thank you.
So I might put that question to Mr. Delina, if you'd like to address that. Thank you.
Through you, Mayor. I was actually trying to look how many comments or how many shares or likes we actually had on the
video.
The views
Yeah.
we had on the video for Hemmerford Grove. Sorry, I didn't quite get there before we asked the question. We did do and this we debated whether we have an opening for Hemmerford. In the end, we landed that we would we'll have a soft opening, and we'd advertise it through Facebook. The Mayor and our landscape coordinator did a really good post that was quite fun and was really well received by the community. And there has been a number of posts that have actually gone out on Facebook more recently.
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
There was the same post on LinkedIn.
And as well as obviously the opening that we had for the toilets the other week.
Councillor Samble brought up about the landscaping near the bridge.
Yeah, so there was a post on Murray Street Stage 7 that we did quite some months ago now, and there were posts that we put in since, and there is a 2-page article that's currently being prepared for the Bunyip in January, just to highlight all the achievements that we've actually done more recently in the town. I think, Henry, that's kind of, I know we've been in the process of preparing that at the moment, so that'll be another forum to advertise the good work that we're doing.
Okay, thank you. I think that addressed that. Any other questions without notice? There be none. So now we move on to motions on notice, and Councillor Davies, you have a motion?
Yep, I did provide some alternate wording, which is up there. But yes, essentially, as we've been hearing from many people earlier tonight, the planning system is currently designed to cut out council and community as much as possible and just make it something that happens from Adelaide and by the state government. And I think it's just not really acceptable when it comes to places like Gola. We get a bad deal out of that. The changes essentially, this gives us something aside from speaking to the planning minister. We can review our own processes so that when we appoint CAP members in the future, we'll have a process for that that tries to take into account knowledge of the town of Gola. So yeah, I think this is and I'll just mention also that I'd like to move something similar, hopefully, when we get around to the general meeting of the LGA, because I think this would be good to be able to push this as all of the councils rather than just Gola.
Do I have a seconder? I think I saw your hand up first. If you need, you wish to speak at all.
Yeah, just to agree. I think it's unfortunate that there's only one council rep on the panels now, and that local knowledge, sometimes is taken heed of, and other times, unfortunately, it's not. But it was quite good having more council members as panel members, because it actually gave a broader debate. And I think often when we had representatives in the gallery asking questions, seeing local councillors also on the panel, and also them asking questions and engaging a fair bit in that sort of, I think that it gave a bit more surety that concerns are being listened to, and some changes were being made. So it was really important to have elected members, and also that range of skills on the panel is really important. Shouldn't all just be planners in one planning area, but having those social skills and environmental or other areas is really important to the town as well. So no, I think hopefully with the election coming up, there might be some chance of actually hopefully getting some sort of say, but it was unfortunate. I think both the major parties we sort of had to fight to get one councillor, I think, in the end on the panel, which was really disappointing. So yeah, hopefully this time with what's going on in other councils as well, there is hopefully a bit of a sway, and I agree that going there to using the local government association is important as well. So happy to support it.
Any other discussion? Councillor Goldstone and then Councillor Fraser.
Yeah, look, I'm happy to support it. I don't know how successful it will be, but you could only try. I mean, the reduction of council involvement and input caps has been deliberate. You know, it's to reduce the political side of decision making. But yeah, I'm quite happy to support this, and having been involved in panels where there were more elected members on the panel, I've seen it work both ways. But at the moment, of course, with myself, I'm the only one on the cap at the moment, representing council, so I'm definitely in a minority. But yeah, happy to support the application.
Any other discussion? Councillor Fraser.
Yes, I'm happy to support this. This is something that we probably knew was going to happen with all the complaints that we've had. When they were talking about the new planning regulations, we discussed all this. We put in things, but they just ride over it. You really need the ground roots of a community. For example, a community is the community, so it should have community say in it. And we just don't have that at the moment. And maybe if they were listening to tonight and they listened to perhaps other councils' meetings where people are just complaining about the lack of say that they have, they might change it. But I agree, probably not.
I know the LGA went in hard trying to get more members, and I know they lobbied the crossbenchers, particularly Mark Parnell. He was particularly supportive, and I think he said that we were lucky to get one at the time. They were almost going to have none. But yeah, it is an issue. It's a definite issue. Community's been taken out of decision making. Councillor Shanks.
Yeah, the cap, I actually really enjoyed the process when I was first on, in my first year and going for cap. I learnt a lot, but yes, I did notice that some of the community sentiment sometimes does get a little bit overlooked. And sometimes you're coming in and you're going, no, this is the wrong decision, wait, and then all of a sudden away we go. So I thank Councillor Davies for putting this up, and thinking that it probably won't go anywhere, it definitely isn't a reason not to try. So I think I definitely think this is worthy of a shot, and if we get knocked back, we'll try again. And just a question to you, Councillor Davies. You submitted this on the 27th of November. Under your points 1 to 4, you put down background. Were you meaning that as a preamble by any chance? Because that's how I took it. You were. Okay, thank you. Cheers.
Any other discussion? If not, Councillor Davies, happy for me to put the motion? I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Councillor Shanks, you have the floor. Present your motion.
Thank you, Mayor and members. Look, anything I'm going to say tonight is probably going to be shadowed by the way Lynn presented her presentation in the public open forum. I think this is the right thing to do on so many different levels. It's one of those, again, you might hear me keep on repeating myself, a minimal cost for a maximum benefit. I was happy to change up the wording because there was a little bit of fear of leaving it open-ended. I've been talking to Lynn quite a lot in regards to this. I've learned a lot. And even just the statistics where she was able to quote tonight, 22% of Australian residents live with a disability. Now, our changing places facilities are a great asset for the town, albeit I believe they're in the wrong location, but I'll leave that one alone for now. I think we have a great asset that's being funded by the community one way or another. And I think we are almost there. This is the icing on the cake. This is the one where we turn around and say, you know what, ratepayers? We're going to give you a $20 key upon request. We're going to allocate minimal funding to it, $5,000. And that will allow for 250 people roughly to be able to get their key, as Lynn has already, because she sees the convenience of doing so. Providing this service and making it as simple as possible for those people that might not find just going to the bathroom as simple as we may is the right thing to do for our community on a moral and ethic level. Again, it's a minimal cost for a maximum effect. And just to reiterate Lynn's points, what happens if this facility, the reason we built this is for the people that use these facilities cannot use them because they choose to go for a walk. The carer takes them for a walk on a nice balmy night, but everything's closed and they can't get into the facility we have now built using their money to build it. Just think about that for a moment and think about how easy it is to be able to provide a service simply for the people that we built this for. And I'll leave it to the floor.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Samble. Any discussion? Councillor Kosh.
Look, I'm going to support this, but I've just got one question. Who's actually eligible for it? I thought there was an eligibility criteria. Is that right? I just want to clarify that.
People with significant disabilities are eligible. Some organisations already have a key, but many who live in community do not have a key. And if you want to change your NDIS funding, it's not straightforward. It's actually quite difficult. And NDIS funding is really complex. And yeah, if you want to include the $20 fee. So does that help? Thank you. Any other discussion? Councillor Shanks, are you happy for me to put the motion? I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Councillor Davies.
So this one is basically prompted by the wraps on our new toilets. I was looking at those and I thought this is something that I'd love if we could have, you know, things like local descriptions of heritage and, you know, images and that, just sort of investigate where around the town we can continue to do that work, because I think this is valuable work that we're doing here to make sure that Gawler is a culture that when new people come, they learn about, oh, this is the modern Bay Fix, these are our church areas, historic, etc., etc. So basically this was just a request for a general report on places where we might be able to continue that work.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Shanks.
I'm just trying to find it, but I think you did a preamble with this one as well, didn't you? Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, look, I'm in support of this. We do have that essence that it would be fantastic to educate our town with. This is a report to promote that even more so. We do a bit of promotion in this space, I believe, but there's always room for improvement, and I think I see this as a benefit to the town. I also note some of the questions that we're getting through the youth advisory. Funnily enough, we've got teenagers that are asking heritage questions. It's fantastic. So let's open up the doors and get this report back and see what options are available. So yeah, look, I'm fully in support of this.
Any other discussion? If not, Councillor Davies, you happy for me to put it? Motion? No, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Now we have 16.4, so I'll declare a perceived conflict and I am going to leave the room. Thank you. And if I could ask Deputy Mayor to take the chair.
Councillor Vallelonga, would you like to present your motion?
Yeah, I'm not going to say much on it. It's explanatory. Are we, can they supply us the cost on that code of conduct? So that's probably Henry in that question.
Yeah, the motion is actually asking for a report, but I suppose to save the staff time in a report, whether it can be answered now or taken on notice, or whether you still want to go through the motion.
My recollection is that the cost is $12,000.
Sorry, the question was that the final cost?
Well, that was my recollection. I would need to take that on notice to confirm, but that's my recollection.
So we've got a seconder for this motion to bring this matter to the January meeting. Anyone, any discussion, councillors? You'd like to speak to it?
Yeah, look, I'm happy to second it. However, I'm not too comfortable. I was going to ask the mover in the January 2022 council meeting. We're all coming off break, and I don't know if that's, you know, it's come to the December meeting. If the mover is happy for me to change that to February, I'm happy to second.
So if the minute taker could change that to February, because the mover has accepted that change.
No worries. All right, I'll speak to it now if I can.
Yeah, sorry. Yep.
That was my fault, sorry. Yeah, look, I'm not going to go into the frustration of the whole code of conduct. I'll be repeating myself, but this report to come back is merely us trying to get a handle on at least one of these complaints, on what it's actually costing us. And I hope in that report that we get back will be the final figures and broken down and to a way that we can digest. Unfortunately, if code of conducts want to keep on going back and forth, we as elected members need to be educated in the decisions that are made, that are counting on this. This report will give some final figures of this one, and then yeah, we'll be able to hopefully make some better business decisions when it comes to code of conducts, and maybe, just maybe, start looking at some mediation attempts.
Yeah, look, the concern I've got, I guess we'd need to question the need for a full-blown report on this, when it could simply be taken on notice and subsequently answered, like you've already mentioned. You know, do we really need a full-blown report that's going to take staff's time when it can simply answered at the next meeting?
Any other further discussion, councillors? I'll put the motion. All those in favour of the motion? All those against? Was it 3-all? Sorry, 4. Sorry, I didn't quite see Councillor Little. So the motion's carried. Thank you.
That concludes motions on notice. Are there any motions without notice? There being none. Council member attendances and activities. I might go through some of where I've been over the last month. It's been quite a busy month. Some of the, I guess, highlights: I attended Pat Harbison's funeral on the 24th of November, held at St George's Church. I also wrote a tribute to Mrs Harbison in the Bunyip, attended a residents' meeting about the Edith Street traffic matter with some other elected members as well. We're having some meetings with the Veterans Shed projects, the Black Ops, and they're looking at co-locating on the adjacent to the Williston Men's Shed site, which is really quite an interesting proposal, and that's in its early stages of discussion. We had a History Network planning meeting for 2022, which is in preparation for History Month 2022, and they seem to go really well so that you get a complementary and not duplication of activities across the month, and that seems to be running really well. I was asked to open Scammell's and Co. New premises on 27 Adelaide Road on Friday the 26th of November, and there were a number of elected members there as well. And that went very, very well. And they're quite excited about expanding in Gawler, and I think that's a really, really good thing for Gawler as well. I went along to the 16 days of activism at Big Gumtree on Saturday the 4th of December, and I was asked to speak there. And I spoke about the Kate Jenkins report that was delivered by the Australian government on the bullying and intimidation and the appalling behaviour towards women in politics. It's a really important report, and I urge everyone to read it, because I think it happens in local government, state and federal, and it doesn't seem to be changing all that much. So it was an important report, and I think many women there were pleased to see that raised. I also went along to the new Ghana Wangayata repatriation area at the Smithfield Memorial Cemetery Park, and that is the first of its kind in Australia. North, South, East and West Ghana people will be able to be repatriated. Many old people are sitting in cellars, in boxes across the world, including the SA Museum. This was the SA Museum's really important work of bringing old people home and having a place and back on country. And it was a really moving, a moving ceremony with many dignitaries and important Aboriginal people there. It was a really important event to go to, and it's really quite, I think, a privilege to have that in our town council area. It is a very, very important area. If you get to have a look at it, I think it's exceptional. So you are able to go in and have a look, and I think it's a really reflective area. I also went to the vigil, also with the 16 days of activism in the playground in Gawler South, 5th Street Playground, in the park there. That is a really important vigil. A woman spoke, they usually have a woman speaking about her experience of having to flee a violent household, and it is often a moving ceremony that's done really, really well by the Zonta Club of Gawler. The Christmas markets were on the 11th of December. I went there quite late, but it was a really big success. Certainly the Apex Club enjoy working with council staff, and it's a really collaborative event, and I think it went really well. On Saturday, I took my grandson to the Santa's Cave here, and it was absolutely fantastic. I was speaking to the men's shed last night at the Rotary Christmas dinner, and they made over $3,000 for the weekend. It's the highest, it's bigger than the Gawler show, they said, coming here. And they have got some ideas of how to improve it. They'd like to debrief with staff, so I think that would be a really good idea. And yeah, it's a really popular event. So that's all. And of course, last night went to the Rotary Christmas dinner at Nixon's, and lots of people were there, and it's always a really, really good event. So that's my wrap for the month. Yes, Councillor Davies?
So I went to a few things, but I guess I'll just mention some of them. There was an interesting residents catch up with the Eder Street residents, I think maybe the day after the last council meeting, actually, which was, I think, quite worthwhile going to. I also went to another meeting about the community garden, and there, as you might know, as under council, we applied for a grant for the community garden, which didn't end up getting up. So we're sort of discussing where to go from there. I think they've got some good, a clear path forward now. So looking forward to that. I think the community garden group is very dedicated. I would love to see it start to flourish. Other than that, I guess I'll just mention I went to the Twilight Apex markets as well. Really glad that that was the week that we officially launched the toilets, because they got a lot of use there right next to all the whole new event. So yeah, it was a great time.
Any other, anything else elected members want to share with events they might have gone to? Yes, Councillor Zammel?
I represented Mayor Karen at the valedictory ceremony at Rosewood campus, where 64 students, after a 6-year term there, have now gone out into the veterinary world. It was a great event, and there's no doubt about it. If any of you have never taken the time to go and visit Rosewood campus now to see how it is, it's just an amazing place. And these people were from all over the world, and Chinese people were right through to Indonesia and all, and it was a great event. And the other one, as Mayor Karen said, was going to the Scammell & Co business launch, which was very professionally run, and Mayor Karen officially opened the new premises over there on Adelaide Road. And other than meeting with a number of problems that people have called about, and I think probably one of the areas I've got to certainly congratulate the people that and Mr. Bartlett for setting up the Christmas cave with the men's shed. I'm not sure whether you all had a look at some of the quality of the stuff that the Gawler men's shed actually made there, and there's no doubt about it, it certainly would have sold. But the major complaint that I received from so many, which surprised me, and it's a simple thing: why wasn't the Christmas cave used in the youth shack? And the main problem was for parking, because people couldn't find parking here in the town. So that was the only thing, but no criticism whatsoever to the Santa's Cave and everything, and the way it was operated, the way it was set up and displayed was just a credit to the town of Gawler. But for people being able to find somewhere to park to come and bring their children here is the only complaint that I heard about it. Thank you.
Any, Councillor Cosh?
Yeah, look, I just want to mention that I went to the Gorlin District College graduation night a few weeks ago. I just want to comment what a fantastic evening that was, and just on displays, the talented students at that college, just fantastic. They did a wonderful job, and the students are really performing very well and will be very successful in the future.
And Gawler and District College had their first student who got over 99 ATAR. They had 5 students over 95. Absolutely outstanding effort for our public secondary school or super school. It's just such a credit to the teachers and the students themselves. Yeah. Anybody else wish to share where they've been, what they've been doing? No? Okay. Thank you. That concludes council member attendances and activities. We now move, do you want to have a break? Shall we have a break, have a 10-minute break, and we'll come back at 9:25 and we'll deal with the confidential reports. Thank you, everyone. Okay, might as well get moving. Thanks, everyone. So we are now on to confidential reports. And I'm on page 56 of our public agenda, and I've got our pink packet next to us. So we have an officer's recommendation to move into confidence based on commercial reasons of council. Are you happy to move that way, Councillor Samble? Do I have a seconder to move into confidence? Deputy Mayor, do you wish to speak?
Just to say it is regarding could confer a commercial advantage on a person to whom council is conducting or proposing to conduct business or produce a commercial position of council. So I think it is important in this instance to go into confidence.
Any other discussion? If not, I'll put that motion that we go into confidence. All those in favour, please raise your hands. It is carried unanimously.